so here's my next build. My sister sent me this timber rattlesnake skin, which I think is just gorgeous. So I thought, what can I do with that? Well, obviously I'll put it into a sheath. It'll be inlaid in the front, but I thought as far as the blade, why not try a mosaic and try to mimic the pattern into the steel? So we're going to give that a shot. So today I made this nice big wide canister. I'm going to make it probably around 3/4 of an inch thick, and then when I squish it down a little bit, I made this really wide so when I squish it sideways it'll distort the pattern a little bit, because you can see these aren't nice, you know, pieces like that, but once I squish it down, you know, it probably will mimic that pattern a little bit better. So we're going to try to make a snake knife this time. So what I'm going to do, all of the angle iron here is mild steel. These little bolts that I cut off are mild steel. So I'm going to use those to try and copy the angle iron here, and then I'm going to put the bolts in random patterns around the sides to try and match that. So when you etch it, those should stay dark. And then I'm using the 1080 powder with 4% pure nickel all around it. Well, to give it a little bit of pattern and try to make it look somewhat like scales, I cut up all these pieces of bandsaw blade, which is it's similar to a 15N20. It's probably L6 steel, which I believe is 1.5% nickel, and the nickel will resist when you etch it, so it'll be kind of shinier versus the darker carbon steel. So once I get everything in place, I'll tuck a bunch of these into the powder, so they will both resist the etch a little bit, but it'll still give it some kind of a pattern to hopefully make it look a little better. So we'll get everything packed in the canister. We'll try to copy this pattern as close as I can. Then when we squish her down and get the blade cut and everything, hopefully it looks like this. So we'll give it a shot. Also, this is 2 strips of 1084 steel, which is a good high carbon cutting edge. I cut these off and I'm going to double them up, and then I'm going to pack them on the one end here. So then when I'm done and I got the billet finished, I'm going to cut a V in here and forge weld that end around, so my cutting edge will actually be this good high carbon steel. And when I cut the V out of the end of it and fold that up around and forge weld it on the anvil, that cutting edge should stay on the bottom and come around. Well, it'll definitely be a different size, you know, but the pattern should hopefully stay somewhat consistent. You know, not that these are consistent all the way through, but, you know, as you get back, I believe, towards the head a little more, or is that the tail? Towards the tail, you know, it almost looks like a big W versus way up where I believe is the head. You know, you have a little bit different pattern. So I'm just trying to average it out here a little bit and get it close. So now I'm going to take these little L6 shims and try to shove them in, just so in the areas where it's high nickel powder, we'll just get a little bit of a pattern. They should etch similar, but you'll still be able to see that it's something different. And then there's a lot of these little random black patterns, pieces around, so I'll probably stick a few of these in there with them, you know, because these are the mild steel, so they should etch really well, which will give it that darker color. A couple of spots in throughout there. You want to say hi, Tavis?
Sure. Hey guys.
I gotta help her today. Hey, well, go around the other side. You can put one piece in. You can be a part of the build. Go over here.
Okay.
Alright, take that piece of steel.
Okay.
Now watch what I do. I'm taking it and I'm pushing it down in there carefully, pushing it all the way down so it stands up.
Okay, where do I put it?
Wherever you want. Pick a spot. Push it all the way down. Alright, so the assist to the build goes to Tavis Tudor.
There, I did all the work.
All the work. Oh, all the work, he says.
Mm-hmm.
Alright, that's probably about it for the L6. Hopefully that kind of gives the impression of some scales. Now I'm going to put a couple of random ones of these in there, which will etch dark to kind of hopefully mimic like the little black spots you can kind of see around on it. You know, it looks like maybe there's a few of them lined up in between each big one, so I'll give that a try.
Should zoom in on that a little more. Can you?
Go ahead. Well, I think that's going to probably about do it. Well, we'll get it hammered in the shop. Then welded. as you can see, a couple of side crushes on the press split my weld. It's kind of what I was hoping for, actually. You know, there's a little split there, and that one's blown right out. So hopefully we should be able to get it out of this can pretty easy. Well, it looks like a solid billet. You can see the pieces of angle right in the edge there. And she's dense. And nothing really to hit it with here. And sounds pretty solid to me. But she's thick, so I gotta get her back in the forge and get it to the shape I want. Well, there it is, cooled down. You can see quite a few cracks on the edges and stuff, but hopefully they're not too deep and I can surface it, flatten it down a bit, still pretty thick, and see how bad they are and grind them out and see if it'll actually affect where I need to profile the blade to or not. But overall, it's a nice big thick fillet or billet. 16 inches by a little over 2 1/4, but by the time I clean the edges up and stuff, it'll probably be 2 by 15 easy. So I'm gonna work on getting her cleaned up and see how good it did to actually turn out. I see a lot of cracks that are a lot deeper than I would like them to be. So there's still a lot of cracks along the top edge. So I'm going to see if I can try to get them to partially close up in the forge a little bit. Just flux the hell out of them and try to close them up a little. If not, I'll grind around them and make the knife shorter than that, because there's plenty of good steel here to work with. I did a quick little test etch on it just to see how the pattern was looking, and yeah, I don't know, kind of on the fence about it. Just the very quick etch, you could see the parts that I thought were going to be shiny are dark, and the parts that I thought were going to be dark are shiny. But I think that'll change once I get a deeper etch. But so we'll get the tip of the knife cut in and get that forged around, so the nice dark cutting edge here that I think that was 1084 I put in there will actually curve up and follow the bottom of the tip. So we'll get that going. Couldn't get that crack out of there, so off it comes. Alright, so there's what I came up with. I did lose quite a bit of steel, as you could see earlier. I had to, there was a nice big crack right here that I just couldn't get to seal up, and it was really bad. So anyway, probably lost a good 3 to 4 inches off of here. But once I cut that off, I was able to round this up on the anvil. And my initial plan, I was hoping to do a full tang, you know, where the handle scales just go right over the steel, but now it's going to be a hidden tang because it's going to be shorter. But the pattern, I mean, it's still kind of showing. I was hoping it would collapse and look a little more like the actual skin, but you know, it looks like I'm going to get probably a, you know, right around a 9-inch blade. So typically add 5 to that, so it's going to be about a 14-inch blade overall. Thickness wise, it's not too bad. It's a little under a quarter, but it's already pretty much finished edge, so it should be alright. It's not going to be a real thick Bowie, but I think there's enough of the texture on there where it should look pretty good. I was hoping for a little bit longer and a little bit thicker, but we will make this work. There was so many cracks in that billet that I had to grind away. I lost a lot of steel, but this is kind of the shape I'm going to be going for. I'm going to do a false edge across the top there, and then you could see the 1084 cutting edge that I got, you know, rounded up real nice. That's going to look good on there. So I'm pretty confident the piece I cut off of here from the crack, I think there's about 3 inches or so. So I'm going to try and make that my guard. Still no idea what I'm going to do for a handle. I think I have a nice big chunk of whitetail stag antler out there, so maybe I'll do an antler handle on it. But we'll see. I'll have to dig through my pile and see what I got. Otherwise, I'll find something. But anyway, there's what I'm dealing with. There's the blade. So next step is to get it profiled. Alright, so here's kind of the plan. So this is the piece of the billet that I cut off the front end. It had a big crack in it, but it's got the pattern in it, so we're going to use that for the guard here. And then I got a couple of yellow G10 spacers, a nice chunk of bronze that will make the guard and shape them together, and then a nice chunk of curly maple, stabilized curly maple here. We'll cut in, and I'll extend this a little bit and then run a pin through here, hold it all into place. But that's kind of the plan. So hopefully it looks pretty good with the guard kind of matching the blade. You know, I'll try to center it in between, you know, the V there, and try to make it symmetrical. But so I guess the next step is get all these pieces kind of cut down and ready to be assembled, get this all ground out, and take her from there. Here I'm doing a differential heat treat on this blade. So I'm putting refractory cement on the parts that I don't want to harden as much. And what that'll do is it will retain the heat a little more, protect the steel from the quench, I guess. It'll make it cool slower, so it won't harden the steel quite as much. And the benefit of that is you get the hardness on the cutting edge, which is great for your strength and retaining a sharp edge. And the back of it, where I'm putting the clay on it now, will it'll stay softer, which makes it tougher. It'll have a little bit of flex to it. So you'll have the strength overall of the whole knife, but it'll still hold a really good edge. So once you quench it, then that comes right off and makes the knife just tougher and stronger overall. Alright, here she goes for her bath. Very excited to see what this one turns out like. Alright, it's been 5 minutes. Let's get a sneak peek here. It's pretty cool. Hoping to be a little tighter pattern than that, but cutting edge turned out nice. Alright, well I'm going to sand that up. We'll do 3 cycles of that and then get it in some coffee to hopefully darken everything up, and then we'll get going on the handle.
didn't even know